Well, it just seemed like a no-brainer to preach on the flood with all this rain that we've had and all the local flooding, and it looks like we've got even more rain coming our way. So, no-brainer, right? Everyone's thinking about flooding, so let's look at the flood. There's probably no other story known to mankind or in Scripture that captures the imagination quite like the flood. There are so many interesting components to the story that just stand out as bizarre, as unusual, but yet as very believable. I don't think that science and faith are enemies. There are a lot of parts in science that help collaborate what we believe to be true about the universe, the way it began, about some type of intelligent design having to be behind it. But one part about science that's interesting is it confirms that at one time there was a global flood. Science confirms that at one time the entire face of the earth was covered in water. And that's interesting because we read that right here in Genesis. I took a class on the Pentateuch when I was in college. Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. We never got past chapter 12 of Genesis. A whole semester, we were supposed to cover 5 books. John Fortner was an expert in cuneiform. It's that little chicken scratch looking writing in clay tablets. And I remember well the days, probably even weeks, that we spent talking about Noah and the flood and the questions back and forth. It is just a fascinating story. Even after all of these years, you never outgrow Noah and the ark. It sticks with us. But unfortunately, we've kind of romanticized the story. We're so used to it, we think we know the story really well, and we've kind of used it in ways that maybe have misused it. Think about children's nurseries. All right? Come on now. If you read the story, is that really a theme to go on the wall of kids? Right? Man is constantly wicked. God repents in the Hebrew. Our English translations a lot of times say regret. It says he repented. God repented of making mankind. And he kills every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth. But yet we're going to have a Noah's Ark poster. Hey, have you ever gone to a Bible bookstore and you look at the cover of children's Bibles? What's on them? Every single one of them. There's an ark, right? And there's a giraffe and an elephant. And everyone's smiling. It's not a smiley story. God repents of making humanity, and he's going to wipe everybody out. It's a catastrophic story. It's filled with violence. It's annihilation of the entire human race, except for Noah. Noah finds favor. When's the last time you even read the story? Well, I don't have to read it. I already know how it goes. What, Betty?
The last time I read Genesis.
Yeah, last time you read Genesis, right? And so, how often do we? I recommend reading it annually, keeping it somewhere in the forefront of your mind. It tells us about human nature. It tells us about God. It tells us about God's character. It tells us about what God is concerned about and what he expects. And it shows us insights into God's heart. Right? So, you're looking at the first few chapters of Genesis. We get to the story of Noah, right? Noah is 500 years old at one point, then he's 600 years at another point, and then these people just live forever, it seems like. Methuselah was over 900 years, right? Noah has the 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He's going to build an ark, right? God's upset with humanity. He's disappointed. Every thought, every intention, everything is only on evil and wickedness. And so God repents. He regrets. I'm going to wipe everything out. Noah finds favor. God says, okay, I want you to build this boat. It's basically about 450 feet long, about 75 foot wide, about 45 foot high. And I want you to gather all these animals, right? You're going to gather 2 of each kind. Sometimes it's going to be 7 of that kind. There's going to be sacrifices later, right? So think about Noah, like sending his sons out, right? And according to the story, it had never rained yet. The earth had not experienced rain, right? So things are watered by a mist in the air and water coming out of the ground, but no rain like we know today has come down. And so they're cutting down trees to build the ship. I imagine the trees are growing back up while they're building, because it's going to take a while to build the ship, right? They're going to get it together. And then how does Noah call in the animals? Well, if you know the end of the story, in chapter 9, at the end, God says, now all animals are food for you to eat. Before this, everyone's a vegetarian. I'd have made a bad Noah shipbuilder, because, you know what? I'm going to be hungry, and I don't think I'm going to get that ship built on grass or carrots, right? I need a good steak. But at the end, it says, you can eat everything, and now the fear of man will be upon animals. So apparently at this time in the history of the earth, animals were not afraid of humans. So when you try to think of Noah leading the elephant and the giraffe on the boat, I guess he didn't get the unicorn, I don't know, but he's going to get them on the boat, and he's going to save them. So he gets everyone on there, and they are out to sea, so to say. Right? It rains 40 days, 40 nights. Rain comes down. The springs in the ground break forth. The highest mountain's covered by 15 cubits. And they're on the water for 150 days. Right? So he sends out the bird. It doesn't come back. He sends out the dove. Right? Sends out the dove. It comes back with the olive branch. They know that there's dry land somewhere. And there's still months in that boat before they ever come out. And in the meantime, other than Noah, his wife, his 3 sons and their wives, everybody is annihilated. And then the ship comes to rest. There are 2 times in the Hebrew Bible that this word for ark is used. It's pronounced something like teva or something like that. Here, I know you're thinking, what about the Ark of the Covenant? Different word. There's 2 times that this word is used in the Hebrew Bible. Here, and in Exodus. Remember where Moses is put into a basket? It's the same word for ark. It's a loan word. It's actually not, it's a borrowed word, a loan word. It's actually not Hebrew in origin. It's an Egyptian word that Moses, when he writes Genesis, has borrowed. Is that not an interesting correlation? Mankind is saved through the ark while everything is destroyed, and the Hebrew nation will be saved through Moses. He's going to deliver them, and he is placed in an ark. Again, it's a Hebrew borrowing the word from the Egyptians. So we think we know the story pretty well. There's a lot of intricacies in it. Are you aware that in the ancient world there were multiple stories of a global flood? If your high school English teacher was really cutting edge, you might have read it. But if not, if you had an English class in college, you would have had to read the Epic of Gilgamesh. All right? So there's a very similar plot line. There's a hero like Noah who is called, but by the gods, not our singular God, but the gods, to build an ark, to capture animals, and to save a few animals and humanity. Now, in Genesis, God repents of making mankind because every thought is on evil and wicked. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, and there's also one that the Sumerians had as well, humanity's so noisy, the gods can't sleep at night. And there's all the noise and chaos, so they're going to punish mankind. What's interesting in some of these other older written accounts of a global flood than Genesis, when the hero lands his ark and offers a sacrifice, the description is that the gods descend like flies onto the sacrifice because they're so hungry. Not the type of gods that would really inspire or impress you. So why would there be multiple stories of a global flood that have such similarities? It only makes sense that there would be a collective memory of such a catastrophic event. But weren't they written before Moses? Couldn't Moses have plagiarized these other ancient stories? One thing you need to know about Genesis in particular is that Moses is confronting the ancient Near East world of his time with what they believe to be true, and he is giving them the actual facts of how it is. So, for example, Moses' contemporaries would not doubt that there is a supernatural reality. They would believe in the idea of deity, but they believed in a multitude of deities. And so when Moses says at the beginning of Genesis chapter 1, in the beginning, God created, right? He is trying to point them to the God of the Bible. So they already believe in the idea of gods. He's trying to say, no, there's one God. They already know about the flood story. He's going to tell them this is how it really happened. So he's correcting their misunderstandings, their inaccurate view of reality of the world. And so if people tell you, oh man, the flood story, Moses just borrowed that when he wrote Genesis, say no. Everybody remembers the flood. Everyone knew about the flood. He is giving the accurate account of it. Have you ever noticed how nature itself is portrayed in the early chapters of Genesis? Right? So God creates, and it was good, right? Let there be light, let there be land, let there be sea, let there be swarming creatures. Oh, I'm going to make man in our image. Right? It's all good. It's all good. God puts Adam in the garden to tend it, to work it. And what does nature do at that point? It provides everything that man needs. All his sustenance, all his shelter, everything that is good and all that he needs. And then, of course, they eat from the forbidden fruit. Right? Forbidden fruit creates many jams, and now they're in trouble. And what happens to nature at that point? Nature's cursed. Right? Childbearing is going to become painful. There's going to be enmity, strife between the woman's seed and the serpent. And guess what, Adam? Things just now got really hard for you. Because, yeah, you worked at the garden before, but now you'll earn your bread by the sweat of your brow. Thorn and thistle will grow. And so, now all of a sudden, nature, creation is cursed, but it still provides. It's hard, it's laborsome, it's toilsome, but there, Adam and Eve, they're told, Genesis 1, 26, 27, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion over the earth. How does Genesis 9 conclude the story of Noah? Right? I'll put a rainbow in the sky because I'm never going to wipe out humanity again by water. But be fruitful and multiply. Noah's story, it's a rebirth, it's a re-beginning, it's a fresh start. It's like, you have problems with your computer? What's the go-to method of trying to get your computer to work again? Control-Alt-Delete. Shred it. They're coming. No, you reboot it, right? You turn it off. You start with the same thing with your phone. Right? Same thing with your TV. When things don't work, you reboot it. And here is Mother Nature and humanity being rebooted. You know, with all of the technology, thinking about computers, with all of our technological advances, few people could survive a global flood today. Right? You know, think about people like on cruise ships. They're going to run out of food, probably, run out of fresh water. Military, they're on ships, or in the submarine, they're going to run out. Do you know that to this day, with all that we have, send a man to the moon type cliches, more people in America die from floods every year than any other natural disaster. Tornadoes, lightning, extreme temperatures, right? You think about the big cities in the summertime, they say, oh, these elderly people die because they don't have air conditioning, or people like in South Dakota freezing to death or whatever. 75 to 100 people in America die every year from local floods. Flooding say, well, that's not us, that's not going to happen, that's not a big deal. It still affects us. So, have you ever thought about drowning before? Surely if you were a kid and you went swimming, or you watched a show or whatever, I mean, you've seen something about drowning. You can drown in 2 inches of water. How long does it take to drown? Probably about 10 minutes, Rodney. How long till a human would drown? You're the doctor.
Not a pulmonologist.
I'll check it out on WebMD.
Okay.
Never mind.
Oh.
About 10 minutes, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I can hold my breath for 10 minutes. 2 inches of water, 10 minutes. God covers the whole earth for at least 150 days. Does that seem like overkill to you? I mean, he could have done it in one day. There's a message here. Something of dependence on God. Something of trusting in God. Something of a relationship with Noah and with God that is different. Let's see here. Genesis 7. All the flesh died that moved on the earth, the birds, the livestock, the beasts, verse 21, that swarmed the earth, mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostril was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing. And you're going to put this on your kid's nursery, right? It's the cover of the Bible, right? The face of the ground, man, animals, creeping things, birds of heaven, they were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left and those who were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. 150 days. It doesn't take that long. I want to finish with the idea of what the flood reminds us of. The flood reminds us not to lose sight of the value of good character and righteousness. Noah, which by the way means rest. God says that Noah finds favor in his eyes. Everybody is wicked, but Noah is different. Noah is righteous. It also says, and there's only 2 or 3 people that I can think of in Scripture, says that Noah walked with God. There's some value to good character, to righteousness. It also reminds us of what God's view is of wickedness and of violence and of corruption and of evil. But ultimately, it reminds us of God's grace and mercy for those who are faithful, who are obedient, who follow, and who walk with God.